And okay, good morning to you guys in the West. Apparently, it's 10:32 or 10:33 in the Philippines right now in the evening, and we're just about to get started. And don't worry about it, folks. I have prepared myself a double shot espresso to keep me awake and focused on the reading today. First of all, I would like to say to people who have helped me contribute to this. I would like to thank you for your inputs. And today we'll be talking about Romans 120, which many presuppers like to make leverage. And good morning, Christian Carpenter. Hello. It's nice of you to come and chime in. Thank you for coming into the stream. This will be pretty quick. I'll be getting into a open mic segment if anybody wants to contribute or challenge the literature I'm about to read. But as of right now, I gotta finish off reading some commentary. But first, I want to be able to get through all the literature and the literature I'm going to read for now. I mean, there's tons, so this is going to be like more of a four part stream series. So now I want to get into the topic at hand. So allow me to just share my screen just a little bit. Ba 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 ba. Share screen. You have to forgive me. My laptop is pretty much 10 years old, so bear with me. Before we get into the literature, let's read the following verses first. Now, now the presuppers, like the likes of Darth and his other cronies, would like to make leverage of this in an attempt to gain leverage and advantage over their atheistic counterparts. But we'll see in the verses that I've highlighted before and after Romans 120 to see if that's actually a good thing to do, if it's actually sound, and to see if there is such a thing called biblical precept as in written in scripture, but only something you invoke when you presuppose the Bible. And I would also like to show that Cornelius Van Til's apologetic methodology has some problems, especially in his supposed utility of Romans 120. So here we go with Romans 1, and we'll be reading from verses 17 to 23, and it says, "For therein is the righteousness of God, revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and righteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shewed it unto them." 120. "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, into birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things." Now, this isn't something that you can act that you can. This isn't something you can actually use to hammer the atheist in the head with it, because this is actually talking about somebody, a bunch of people who were introduced to the truth, or by their guilt proceeds ignorance. So they decide to limit God, or corrupt, or make a de facto version of God, that of which not to disprove him, but to rather validate their sins. And I'm going to show you that right now. So here we have, hey, good morning, Erica. Nice to see you. Good morning. Good morning to you, but it's good evening from the Philippines. Okay, so we're gonna get into some literature now. Yeah, don't show these tips again. They're freaking annoying. Okay. Do. Just getting up. Hey, Shayla, you beautiful sampagita. I'm not gonna call you tulip anymore because I've gotten into the bit of the the culture situation. Well, in behalf of you getting up, I'm gonna take a long drink from my long shot. Oh, that is great. Okay, now before we get into the church fathers, let's go get some cultural context of this one. Let's see what happened during this time. So during the tenets of Romans 1:1, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God. Summary of the Romans, Paul's salutation to the church at Rome, his deep interest in its welfare, his confidence in the gospel. Confidence. It is the power of God, the wrath of God, the sins of the Gentile world, the Gentile world under condemnation. Paul, instead of subscribing a name at the end of a letter, the custom was to introduce it at the beginning. See other epistles of Paul. Called to be an apostle, to be is not in the original. Paul simply states that he is a called apostle, not one appointed by men, but called by Jesus Christ. He was called when he saw the Lord, and essential to apostleship. His setting apart at Antioch was not this call, but it came direct from Jesus Christ. As soon Judaizing teachers tried to destroy his apostolic authority, he found it necessary on several occasions to show that his commission was directly from the Lord, separated, set apart at the work of the gospel rather. Christ set him apart, and his whole life was consecrated to his divine glory. Now we move on for the invisible things of God. Yes, the verse 20. The invisible things of him, God's attributes, invisible things of him, are clearly seen, are manifested by his works. Nature speaks of nature speaks of God's nature, rather. I don't know what happened here. Nature speaks of God's nature. His eternal power and Godhead, the attributes are especially shown in his works. The earth and the heavenly bodies are effects which must be due to eternal power and divinity, so that they are without excuse. No excuse is left for worshiping helpless idols. Okay, so I'm going to hide the screen a little bit and make an introductory. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so a bit of cultural context. Rome historically was a pagan city, had a pantheon of gods. And when Paul came there, he decided to crash the party that, hey, listen, your idols do nothing. Idols by themselves do essentially nothing. Your idols cannot set things in order. Your idols cannot form the world. Idols basically do nothing. But the God I worship isn't limited to the machinations of our minds or transcends the Genesis. So yeah, it was a bunch of pantheon of gods. So yeah, Rome believed in a pantheon of gods. So what happened here is that Paul was exhorting his polemic to the Romans that you have no other excuses left for worshiping your helpless idols. Your idols do nothing. Okay? And so through this, they actually profane the Holy Spirit by limiting his power or cheapening his status, his attributes, by making him that of which that looks like things that are corruptible, or as the verse says, like four-legged beasts, something that of which is detestable or can be killed. So when they say they didn't acknowledge God as God, it means that they were making a de facto version of God in order to justify their unrighteousness and their sins or even their rituals. So they can also infer their leanings to that of which the way the precepts do. So this isn't something you could use to just hammer into the atheist, saying that you know God exists. Okay, you can't have reason unless you know that God exists. And it's just this excuse to dumb down your opposer and to just make every single argument that they could possibly have belittled. So I'm going to read commentary or some literature from the church fathers because, according to the precepts, I'm not saying all, but for the likes of Darth and his cronies, they're all a bunch of heretics instead of Cornelius or probably John Calvin, which may I add, by the way, that I think it was, according to a credible source in Clubhouse, the Catholics were the ones who coined the term heresy, which is bad juju for Christianity. So here we have Ambrose of Milan of 397 AD, where he says, "We can find it easy to understand then that the creator of angels, dominions, and powers is he who, in a moment of his power, made this great beauty of the world out of nothing, which did not itself have existence, and gave substance to things or causes which did not themselves exist. This is the God we worship. He is not emergent. He is not emergent or dependent on something. He simply transcends everything that we perceive." Then we have Ambrosiastro of 400 AD. Paul here repeats the same thing in order to teach even more absolutely that although the power and majesty of God cannot by themselves be seen by the eyes of the creature, they may be known by the work of the structure of the world. This is epistemology, an appeal to natural theology, that when you approach God as not the de facto God, but the Christian God, the God that is worthy of worship. Once we know God's actual nature, which a man who has an innate sense of knowing God shouldn't have a problem, but that's not the case because the scripture also talks about people who never knew God or knew the gospel. Then they shouldn't have a problem inferring this. And this way, he indicts those who lived without law, whether natural or Mosaic. For by the habit of sinning, they broke the law of nature, wiping out any memory of him, but they did not want to accept the law, which had been given for their reformation. You see? Now, how do you deny something, or twist something, or accept something that you never heard of? You see, what what the presuppers such as Darth and his cronies like to do is they want to assert or assume that everybody has an innate sense of God, therefore making some form of universalism, where everybody has this casual innate access or sense of knowing God, like the actual Christian God. But the thing is, this isn't the thing because this one really talks about epistemology. And the same thing for the Romans who tried to defend their pantheon of gods. How, how do you exactly deny, accept, or make a de facto version of something you never knew about? That isn't something that somebody with an innate sense of having knowledge of God wouldn't do. As we continue, his power and deity are eternal so that they are without excuse. His power and deity are eternal so that they are without excuse, so that the ungodliness might in no way be excused. This is talking about sin, not an actual form of just denying God, but there is a reason why they would deny him, and it's not because they just don't think there is a God, but this is more now of a character or guilt problem. Paul added that the power of God and his eternal divinity were known by men, who were prevented by some foolishness from honoring God. Professing to be wise, they became fools, thinking that making a de facto version of the Christian God in order to just satisfy their unrighteousness and their ungodliness is one thing. So they could make the claim. So you could stake the claim that God exists, but this is the part where I can also say that which God? I mean, in favor of the Romans, because they were also making their own machinations of a God or what the Christian God should be according to their standards. So this is why the atheists can play that game as to asking which God. And now I know Darth likes to say something within the lines of, I'm not gonna play these games. I've been doing this for years already. I know how these conversation goes. Which in case he doesn't even understand that what he's doing is actually he's pulling a Dunning-Kruger effect. That you are so lost or you think you know a lot when you don't. All right? You're so lost that you don't know that you're lost. Or you know a lot of things that you think there's no way you could possibly know some more. Like you got it all in a grasp. Anyway, what about Augustine of Hippo? Invisible things are seen in a special and appropriate way. When they are seen, they are much more certain than the objects of the bodily sense. But they are said to be invisible because they cannot be seen by mortal eyes. Notice that Paul does not call them ignorant of the truth, but says that they held the truth in iniquity. So they actually recognize, the Romans actually recognized the Christian God, but again, they did not want to retain God as God in their heads. This is the idea. They took the truth, but they made leverage in the truth through their iniquity in order to justify their rituals, their ungodliness, their debauchery, their unrighteousness. So this is what they did. They're making a de facto version of the truth. You can't make a de facto version of something if that something is what you're ignorant of. And I'm not talking about willful ignorance. It's like something that you were just ignorant of, you didn't know, that you were oblivious to. And he does not fail to answer the obvious question: how could those to whom God had not given the law have knowledge of the truth? You see? How could those to whom God had not given the law have a knowledge of the truth? So you see presuppers there. You see presuppers. I mean, not all presuppers like Darth. I mean Darth, like in his cronies. There are people out there who do not know that such a God exists. Paul wasn't really talking about people who were oblivious to the gospel or oblivious to the Christian God. He was actually talking to people who actually recognized the Christian God, but they did not. But in here, they made a de facto version of the Christian God in order to make leverage to support and justify their unrighteousness and their ungodliness. That is the same thing that I think Nebuchadnezzar did. He recognized Daniel's God, our God, but then he decided, I'm gonna make me. Oh no, that's not it. I mean, that was only just that was more of a political movement. I'm sorry. Well, it had a religious taste in it. It was more a political movement to show loyalty. So yeah, my bad. That's not it. Now, continuing. How does Paul mean that they are without excuse? Except by reference to a kind of excuse that usually prompts human pride to voice such protestations as if only I had known, I would have not done it. How do you presuppose something that you have no knowledge of? Like, sorry, I took a drink of my coffee, espresso rather. You see, in order for you to have, in order for you to have no excuse as to why you do such a thing, you have to have some kind of attainable form of knowledge or something you've taken along the way where you are shown that what you're doing is wrong, and then you try to justify it that and then you try to justify against it which you think there's nothing wrong, But then again, you have no excuse to think that it isn't wrong because you came across something that has taught you otherwise. So that is why you have this. If only I had known, I would not have done it. You see? How could you have, how could you even begin to presuppose something if you haven't known of that something? Like, what variable could you bring in order to show that you have no excuse to do something heinous or have no excuse to not do anything good or at least have the capacity to hold to what is good and to abhor what is evil? That standard is God. So there are people out there who don't know God. So to suggest that there is an innate sense that everybody knows God, they just deny him in his word. No. There are people who never even came across this truth. And it says here very clear, according to Augustine of Hippo, that Paul was actually talking to a people who did recognize the Christian God, but they don't like him. They don't like how they roll. This goes the same way with free grace. They turn God into this hippy-go-lucky God that just loves everybody but doesn't punish evil. They made a God that tolerates antinomia, while at the same time, that isn't the God we worship. This kind of excuse is taken away from them when a precept is given or when the knowledge of how to avoid sin is made clear to them. Nobody has an innate sense of God. So why would the church fathers even say this? Right? Right? But that's part of your methodological, apologetic methodology, which also Cornelius actually fails to see under, where you can't have reason unless you know that God exists. Well, if that's the case, Mr. Van Til and Darth, tell me, do those genius mathematicians in India who begin to start answering complex problems of trigonometry, Pythagoras theorem, and calculus have no grounds as to which they can answer? Those 5-year olds who are geniuses, they must be pretty dumb, right? After all, they don't actually have an ultimate Gnostic grounding for such knowledge, right? Because they don't subscribe to the nuclear strength apologetics that you give, right? They can never be right about their mathematical equations as to actually study in calculus. You deny autonomous reasoning. Those poor kids, if they ever came across this and actually followed this crap. Anyway, what about Basil the Great? You will find that the world was not devised at a random or to no purpose. See? But this is what we hold too. This is an appeal. This is more of an appeal to epistemology and natural theology. But the thing is, while we hold to this because we believe it, obviously, the naturalist, the determinist, the Platonist, the Islam, the Muslim, or the pagans won't see it that way. As clearly stated in Romans, they can infer their idols the way, I mean, they can play that game the way Darth plays it. No, no. And Darth, he would say, not infer to God, but if he was faced with those frustrating Romans, say, not infer to my idol, not my idol made the world. They can play that game too. They can play that game. In fact, they could even infer their de facto Christian God in their precept if they actually followed Van Til's nuclear strength apologetics. And they would say, no, you don't have logic and reasoning unless you believe in my idol God. See, they can play that game too. That's their epistemology. And their epistemology is a whole lot different than your epistemology. So they won't view it that way, the way they view it. So the only thing you have left now is to demand acceptance. You don't really have much of an argument. Now, as we continue, but to contribute to some useful end and to the great advantage of all beings. It is truly a training place for rational souls and a school for attaining what is there to attain? If they want to infer that everybody universally has an innate sense of knowing the Christian God, then why is there a need to attain something? Right? Why is there a need to attain something? Right? How could you properly infer God or God? How could you properly infer God and the manner of who he actually is if you have no sense of what the Christian God is or what God is? How could you infer something? It would be possible also that you were inferring to a de facto God, in which even nature itself would speak contradictory to that de facto God. Or if anything, how is anybody who doesn't have a knowledge that God actually exists, or actually those living under a cave would have any inference to that one? How could they even have that epistemological application to natural theology when you don't have this? You can't just you can't just put up a false equivalence that they're just outright denying it. Later on, you'll be shown the difference between ignorance preceding guilt versus guilt preceding ignorance, which is much more applicable in this reading that we're having. Through visible and perceptible objects, it provides guidance to the mind for the contemplation of the invisible. Homily 1, creation of the heavens and earth, and all things visibly. Clear reminders of the benefactor grip us. Of course, we recognize God as our benefactor. We shall not give any opportunity for sins. We have a standard to what we hold to, after what we know, and after what we approached in honesty and in honesty and sincerity, or I'll change the word, that we acknowledge in uprightness, that through this, that by this truth we're not pulling its leg, but we're actually taking it as it is. This verse talks a lot more about freaking epistemology rather than talking about an innate sense of actually knowing God, but just pure utter denial. But that ain't the case, not even for everybody. Because in here, Hippo shows that Paul was actually talking to people that recognized the Christian God, but that would not regard him as who he really is. What about Clement of Rome, the even earliest source? Doesn't even support this form of biblical precept or whatever. For those who think aright. Let that sink in. For to those who think aright. God is manifest even by the operations of the world which he hath made, using the evidence of his creation. Like I said, you worship God as he is, not a de facto God. And even by his evidence, and even by the evidence of his creation, you'll be able to properly infer that to him. Because if the way nature runs its course is contrary to God, then that isn't probably the God we worship, but very much more likely a de facto God, a de facto Christian God, just like the things that the Romans did. Right? How about Gennadius of Constantinople, AD 471. He created us with such a nature, placing a mind and reason within us and granting us these things, so that by studying this world we might come to a knowledge of the invisible things which are His. You can't get this if you're worshiping a de facto God or creating a de facto God and somehow inferring this to Him. Our mental faculties, with our mental faculties and the proper acknowledgement of who God is, then we'll be able to infer to Him properly without profaning Him. Paul says that they are without excuse in order to shut them up, for God did not deign to reveal Himself to human beings in order to give them some excuse, but in order to show them that it would be to their advantage to accept Him and His mercy. This is more. So here, Gennadius puts up puts up here a salvific issue. He's not concerned about whether or not. He's not concerned about whether or not. I mean, of course, yeah. Well, of course, having himself known to you is one thing, but this is his main concern. Accept Him and His mercy. He wants you to be saved. So this isn't just limited atonement. He's offering you an advantage to everybody, right? Did not deign to reveal Himself to beings in order to give themselves an excuse. This also tells you that God revealing Himself to you and coming to the knowledge of His salvific His saving grace is not a ticket for you to keep on sinning. All right. I'm going to have a small trajectory here. Okay. All right. How about next? Hippolytus of Rome. And likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the women, burned in their lust, one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly. Now the expression that which is unseemly signifies, according to these, naasini, the first and blessed substance, figureless, the cause of all figures to those things that are molded into shapes, and receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat, where God just gave them up to their vile imaginations and a de facto version of Himself. Not like He blinded them for real, but that of which He just lets them go. What about John Chrysostom? Which also the prophet said, the heavens declare the glory of God. Psalm 19:1. For what will the Greeks or the heathen, hardened heads, say in the day that we were ignorant of you? Did ye then not hear? Hang on. Did ye then not hear sending forth a voice? Did ye then not hear the heavens sending forth the voice by the side? What the well-ordered harmony of all things spoke out more clear than a trumpet? Did ye not see the hours of night and day abiding unmoved continually? The goodly order of winter, spring, and the other seasons remaining both sure and unmoved. The tractableness of the sea amid all its turbulence and waves. All things abiding in order and by their beauty and their grandeur, preaching aloud of the Creator. For all these things and more than these are clearly, does Paul sum up in saying, the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things which are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. And yet it is not for this God has made these things, even if this came of it. For it was not to bereave them of all excuse that He set before them so great a system of teaching, but they might come to know Him. This is a salvific issue, not an intelligence or not an intelligence issue. This isn't something you use to pound someone in the head that they can't reason properly unless they acknowledge the existence of God. Rather, God is more concerned with your soul, not with your intellect. Although, of course, that doesn't mean that he doesn't. Of course, it doesn't mean I'm not saying that intellect is essential. Isn't essential. I'm sorry. What the point is that he's more concerned with your soul, not with your intellect. But by not having recognized him, they deprive themselves of every excuse. And then to show how they are bereaved of excuse, he says, sounds like free grace to me. This one sounds like this sounds like what a free gracer would say. I want you to I want you to sink this in a little bit. Here, just let that sink in a little bit. This is kind of like the things that along the lines. This is what a free gracer would say. Give it 10 seconds. That's for a interjection. Hey, hello, Smokey. What's going on, boy? Glad you could chime in. Okay. We will be getting to the open mic directly, but first, I want to further decimate Darth's apologetic methodology further by appealing to the church father literature. Right now, we're currently in John Chrysostom. The prophet also said, the heavens declare the glory of God. Will the heathen say at the judgment that they were ignorant of God? This is a salvific issue. Again, this is not an intelligence issue. God is not concerned with your mental faculties, he's concerned with your salvation, with your soul. This isn't something you use to pummel atheists in the head, saying that you can't have any reason or philosophical leanings unless you accept that God exists. This is not an epistemological problem. This is more of a salvific issue. As further as I go to the rest of the other church fathers, this is more of a salvific issue, not an intelligence issue. Did they not hear the heavens sending forth a voice, while they will well ordered harmony of all things spoke out more clearly than a trumpet? Did you not see the hours of night and day remaining constantly unmoved? The good order of winter, spring, and the other seasons remaining both fixed and unmoved. Yet God did not set so great a system of teaching before the heathen in order to deprive them of any excuse, but so that they might come to know him. It was by their failure to recognize him that they provide themselves of every excuse. So to go back and recap, while the heathens recognized the Christian God, but they did not want to retain God, as who he is. They gave themselves an excuse to have an excuse to not just ignore God, really, but to make a de facto version of him. Like while they retained them in their minds, they didn't retain while they retained God in their minds. It wasn't taught. It wasn't they retained God not as God, like the God we worship, like the God we know, but something of which would validate their debaucherous lifestyle. So this is the difference now between ignorance preceding guilt versus guilt preceding ignorance. And we'll get to that as soon as we reach Thomas Aquinas' literature. John of Damascus. Concerning this first. John of Damascus. The very creation, by its harmony and ordering, proclaims the majesty of the divine nature. Yep, that is natural theology. Tatian the Assyrian. I don't know, maybe this guy's a precept too. I don't know. Tatian the Assyrian at 180, 180. The forms that are in matter, he is invisible, impalpable, being himself the father of both sensible and invisible things. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the God that we worship. He is not something made in the image of men. He is not something made in the image of the Romans, who then decide to limit his power, cheapen his status, just so they can continue in their lifestyle. The de facto God that they worship isn't the God of the Bible. So let that sink in. Him we know from his creation and apprehended his invisible power by his works. Tertullian of Carthage, for how can the intellect be superior to the senses when it is these which educate it for the discovery of various truths? It is a fact that the truths are learned by means of palpable forms. In other words, invisible things are discovered by the help of visible ones. Even as the apostles tell us in his epistle, for the invisible things of him are clearly seen from the creation of the world, being understood by the things that are made, is guilty both of impudence and malignity, of impudence in aspiring after a belief which is not due to him. Again, this talks about them recognizing God, but they made a de facto version of him to make an excuse for their debaucherous lifestyle, and for which he has provided no foundation. And he had offenders in those wise and prudent ones who would not seek after God. You see? Although he was to be discovered in so many and mighty works and indications of his divinity, not the de facto God's divinity, but his divinity. They are, however, his invisible things, which, according to the apostle, are from the creation of the world, clearly seen by the things that are made. The objects which are touched by the mind are of a higher nature, since they are spiritual, than those which are grasped by the senses. Since these are corporeal, any superiority they may display lies only in the objects. As lofty ones contrasted with the humble, and the faculties of the intellect over against the senses. For how can the intellect be considered sovereign above the senses, when it is in these which educate it for the discovery of various truths? And it's the same thing over and over again. I'm sorry. Now we get into Thomas Aquinas, and I'll admit I actually read this earlier just to prepare. After showing that the truth about God was known by the Gentiles, which means they actually recognized the Christian God, he now states that they were guilty of the sins of ungodliness. First, he shows this with regard to the sin of impiety. Secondly, in regard to injustice there, and since they did not see fit. But someone might believe that they would be excludes from the sin, no, rather, excluded from the sin of ungodliness on account of ignorance. As the apostle says of himself in First Timothy, I received mercy because I had acted ignorantly and unbelief, which means he was essentially willfully denying God. He was a Jew, enemy to the Christians. First, therefore, he shows that they are without excuse. Secondly, he states their sin. So there is a standard now that he's presupposing because he came to know this. So if they're gonna so if the cronies of Darth are gonna suggest that everyone knows God, but they're just in utter denial at their innate sense of God, then you're gonna have to explain to me those who never came across the knowledge of God. No one. How do you presuppose something you never heard of? How do you get a variable out of the blue? And they change the glory in regard. You see, how can you make a de facto version of something you don't even know of? In regard to the first, it should be noted that ignorance excuses from guilt when it precedes and causes guilt in such a way that the ignorance itself is not the result of guilt. For example, when a person, after exercising due caution, thinks he is striking a foe, when he is really striking his father, ignorance preceding guilt, which is not the case here. But in which case this doesn't talk about people who never knew God. This is actually talking about people who never knew God. They were ignorant of Him, where ignorance precedes guilt. But much like to the case and much like to the concerns of the Romans or the Gentiles, which Paul is preaching to, but if the ignorance is caused by guilt, how are you guilty of something you never know about? How do you be guilty of something like you would even raise an eyebrow if you're being accused of a crime you didn't commit? You don't even know it. I wouldn't even feel guilty. You'd feel rather defensive in a sense where, in a sense, in the expression of, huh? That's the idea. But if the ignorance is caused by guilt, it cannot excuse one from a fault that follows. This is willful ignorance. You can't be willfully ignorant or deny something you never knew about, or that of which never pricked your conscience. Thus, if a person commits murder because he is drunk, because he chose to gorge himself in alcohol, he is not excused from the guilt because he sinned by intoxicating himself. This is the choice he made, so he can't plead ignorance here. Indeed, according to the philosopher, he deserves a double penalty. Now, I'm going to stop there now because I want to make room for the open mic. Now, this title was supposed to be "Why Darth." My D keyboard is broken. Why Darth can't just take this verse and use it forcibly? Because I've shown you by the early church fathers that that is not the case. You can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. This does not talk about a intelligence issue or an innate sense of knowing God, which is some kind of a form of universalism issue. This is a salvific issue of those who never came to the truth or were oblivious to the truth. Anyway, open mic is now in session. If anybody wants to come in and contribute, the link is in the chat. In fact, I'll even highlight this. So if anybody wants to come in and chime in, contribute, or challenge memes, then go ahead. You make my day. I was actually expecting some cronies, but here's the thing. Disclaimer. I am not a theologian. I'm basically a random internet hobbyist who's just regurgitating the genius work of the people who actually gave their commentaries and takes in the Bible. So, if you're going to hate me for it, well, I'll tell you what. I'm not the guy you should challenge. Challenge those who did the groundwork for us. But of course, I will gladly put up a stance. So, if anything, come into the stream, give me your takes, and I'll gladly listen. And I'll do my best to actually give my takes. I'll wait and rest from talking for a while. In fact, there's one more commentary I want to give you. This is actually from Dr. David Jeremiah. I'll be reading also from, what's this? His takes on verses 18 to 21. Or 20, yeah, just go with 20. Okay, so his take on verses 18 to 20, he says, people who have not heard about Christ will not be judged for rejecting him. But the charges against them for rejecting the revelation given through their conscience and creation will stand. Anyone can freely reject God despite the testimony of creation and conscience. And apart from the work of the Spirit regenerating hearts, many do. Verse 19, God puts in everyone's heart an inner witness to a source of right and wrong, a greater power to whom they are accountable. But the thing is, David Jeremiah and some other oblivious person, oblivious to the truth, will not view it the same way David does. But this does suggest that we have a spiritual and mental faculty to know the things about God, not a de facto God, but God. If we come to acknowledge Him of who God is and what God is really, not a de facto God, not something that we corrupt in the inner machinations of our minds. Verse 20, God reveals Himself in creation, natural theology. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows His handiwork. No one can miss the evidence of God's created sovereignty. Anything that you want to use to try and reach God, well, metaphorically speaking, it's made available to you that those who seek Him. If ye seek me, ye shall find me. That's the idea. Okay. Anybody want to chime in to the stream? Go ahead. Want to give me their sentiments or tell me I'm just embarrassing myself? Go ahead. Get into the stream. Tell me how you feel. You can tell me you love me or hate me. Link is pinned in the chat. Doobity doop de doop doo. Doobity doop de doop doo doo doo. I'm just gonna take time to rest here. Okay. Mm. Tell you what, while everyone's taking their time, I think I'm gonna open something. I'm gonna close a few apps. I'm gonna open something. So yeah, I understood the verse, but not for the reasons Darth thinks it's for. Mm, tell you what, now that I'm still hooked up in the caffeine situation, what I'm gonna do is actually look into some old discussions. Where am I looking at? Let's see. I hope nobody sues me for copyright. I'm just trying to use this as visual aid. Please don't strike me, YouTube. There's got to be a way to remove that one. I mean, I have another one that is not deleted, and I never opened that stream. StreamYard can be complicated. I'm just gonna open something up. Let's just do a bunch of reviews of the past. Let's see. Oh, this one. This one. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen this video, this is actually what inspired me to do this. Now, mind you, it's not that I hate Darth. I'm not doing this to smear him, but this is more of a polemic, an exhortation, rather. So, I want you to pay close attention on the kind of language he uses. All right? Just make sure that you get all of that. Just all of that. Right? Um, This one. Yep. Yes.
Some sort of neutral venue. So I really don't have any particular interest in engaging with Darth Dawkins, especially since Darth Dawkins.
Hang on. Something else. The StreamYard is malfunctioning. Oh no. Hang on. Something. Share screen. I'll share the window instead. It's a whole lot better. Okay. How come I can't hear the audio? Hang on. Let's see. Audio. Okay. Virtual background, camera. Man, I'm new to StreamYard. Is there a way that I could actually... Oh.
Actually, we did. So I really don't have any particular interest in engaging with Darth Dawkins, especially since Darth Dawkins, his holding interests is scholastically dealing with specific terminology of NT and presuppositionalism. I want to discuss the actual philosophical implication he has his interests because he has facts. So I don't see the point of any changes.
Hang on. I'll try to make this better so that everyone can get a full whiff of the kind of language Darth uses. And I tell you guys, you don't have to be a scholar, a very smart theologian. You don't have to be as eloquent as Norman Geisler. Just get a full munch in this one. And it's loading again. Gosh darn it. This has happened all the time.
Put out a message to Darth Dawkins, letting him know exactly what I think of him. Everyone can go watch that video where I also summarize the interaction with him. And I have no interest in doing any more future engagements with Darth.
Well, actually, we didn't have any engagement. You came into the room and you just were, a loose cannon. What I'd like to know from you.
Oh, wait, you are the guy Smokey is talking to. Okay.
What I'd like to know from you, Smokey, is how is it that when we state apologetically that we will always start with God's revelation in our apologetic? How is that approach garbage? Because that's the Ventilian approach. How is that garbage?
Because it presumes the worldview for the other party without explaining it. It's condescending.
Well, yeah.
Hold on. Are you going to let me finish and actually answer the question?
Neutrality?
Are you gonna let me actually answer the question?
Oh, I thought you were done.
Darth,
no, he's not done. He's talking. Oh. He talks and then you talk.
Go ahead.
Is this Darth with like a slightly higher voice or something? Your diction and cadence is almost. This is why are you doing this here? This is a bizarre thing. How did you even end up here?
Yeah, I'd like you to answer my question.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Mysterious ways, man.
Go ahead. Pitch your question, Darth. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right.
You objected to what I said. Are you presupposing that anyone is being neutral?
What I'm saying is that you are presuming the worldview onto the other party, demanding them to accept it, operating from there as your argumentation. My point is that if you get them to accept the base level of the presupposition, you don't even need the argument.
I didn't hear an answer to my question.
Okay.
You want me to repeat the question?
Go ahead and repeat the question. Go ahead.
Okay. In biblical presuppositionalism,
how's that? Like, I need some help here, guys. Like, how Is the feedback doing good there? I can't seem to edit the. I can't seem to adjust the volume on this thing, or maybe it's because I'm wearing headphones, so it's only available to me. But I like just. Can anyone in the comments tell me that this is good enough? I really put this in
Start
full
in the
volume.
apologetic by starting with God's revelatory actions, okay, as our apologetic. Now, clearly that's a non-neutral position, but are you under the belief that anyone is neutral in these discussions?
Um, I guess I'm not really understanding what your question actually is, Darth. But forgive me for that, because maybe I'm disagreeing with some of the premises inside the question, perchance. I mean, we understand that the atheist tends to deny the validity of the revelation. Like
I'm not hearing an answer to my question.
Well, I'm trying to, Darth, but I think the problem is there's premises inside the question that are making it loaded that I'm
No,
having
it's a
a
very
hard time
simple
actually.
question. Do you
It's
need me to
not.
repeat
It's
the
not.
question?
Darth, you
You're
say
just
it's a
running the
simple
clock out.
question. You say it's a
Yeah.
simple question, but you tend to not do that. Like I said in the video to you, you tend to ask these questions of asking us why tomatoes are purple, and then you have an issue when we're not able to give you an answer.
Yeah, I'm just hearing obfuscation here. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Darth,
No,
I
Darth,
understand what the question is. What I'm trying to explain to you
What was the question I asked you?
premises is
What is the question that I asked you?
well, you want me to? I have to quote it specifically, verbatim, back to you now.
Okay, would you like me to repeat the question for you?
Oh my God!
You remind me of that Duncan atheist that
It's him.
It
Yes,
is?
that is him. Yes, that is the same guy.
I hear it
So
in
do you
his
need me?
tone,
Do you need me
in
to
the way
repeat
he
the question?
talks. He
Smokey?
talks like he's interrogating
You said biblical presuppositionalism. I don't know what that means. So why don't you start
Okay.
there and define
Yeah,
that?
the Ventilian biblical presuppositionalism, in terms of an apologetic, always starts with God's revelatory.
No, that's what you said in your
Now,
question. What I need you to
right
do.
now.
You said a
Okay,
premise.
hold on. I didn't.
It
hear
is
the
him.
answer to my
I
question.
remember that. Hold
Listen to-
on. I remember
Now-
that. Yes.
Okay. Now, what I want to know, I'll repeat the question that you are dodging. Are you presupposing that anyone in this discussion, whether they be atheist, theist, Christian, unbeliever, whatever, are you presupposing that anyone is neutral in this discussion, or that we should start neutrally?
Okay, define neutral.
You don't know what the word neutral means?
I know what the word neutral means, but do you mean epistemologically neutral?
Why can't you just answer him instead of
Ontologically-
wait? Why can't you
Okay.
just answer him when he say define neutral? Why do you have to throw it back at him? Just answer it.
Because a teenager should be able
It
to
doesn't
understand
matter.
what the word
Just answer
neutral
the
means.
fucking question. Just
Yeah,
answer.
are you trying to run interference for him?
No.
Are you right waiting for
I'm
him?
just saying. I
Then
hate
you
it.
should be quiet.
No.
then.
I
It
hate
is
it when
his
you
show,
throw.
Darth. You know,
Yeah,
it's
So
his
you're
show.
just.
It's his
I know
show,
it's his show, but all he's doing is white knighting.
Now, I'm sorry. Now, I'm getting the feeling that you guys know how Darth operates now. Because when things don't go his way, or when you don't meet his demands, he begins to throw hissy fits. And he likes to go, and I think he likes to, I think he doesn't know where he's at. Okay? He's literally coming into a show, he's literally coming into a room which isn't his. And then when they don't, and when they don't give what Darth wants, he starts throwing a hissy fit. And when Darth is a moderator and he starts throwing a hissy fit, he just server mutes somebody because they wouldn't accept his demands. But what is the equivalence of both scenarios? Well, if things don't go his way, he goes to Clubhouse or wherever he can hide to make a circle jerk full of his cronies and expects them to actually freaking, I don't know, circle jerk or just rub his thighs in the medial section. I don't know, just giving him a pat in the back, just saying that, look how I dismantled these dumb atheists and that superlatively lost Christian, where I don't know why he hasn't subscribed yet to our nuclear strength apologetics. That is what he does. He just likes to revile and slander people when things don't go his way, and we don't give him what he wants. And if I don't, or you don't, be it atheist or Christian, that strongly disagrees with this methodology, or actually thinks that he's just nothing more than a male embodiment of a Karen, I'll tell you this: you're basically dumb, a heretic, a devil, a deceiver, and all kinds of all those colorful names if you don't agree with him. That's Darth Dawkins for you. Anyway,
No, I'm not
I
wide knighting for
disagree.
anybody.
I'm wondering
still like an
why
answer
you
to
can't
my question.
define the components of your
Okay,
question.
when I say
Darth.
neutral, that
Darth,
we're not
I've
starting
now
from an
asked you to
ontological
clarify
commitment.
two different premises of your argument,
Yeah,
both
yeah,
of which
you're
you
just
deny.
obfuscating.
Okay.
Ah!
Now, when I say, are you presupposing that anyone is neutral, that any of the parties in question are not starting from an ontological starting point or commitment? Are you presuming that?
I will presume that everyone does have an ontological starting point.
So
Absolutely.
nobody's neutral then, right?
In terms of having an ontological starting point, I would say no. No one. Well, everyone is neutral in that sense that everyone has a.
Okay, so we're
potentially
starting with
neutral starting
God.
point.
They're starting with not God. Do you start with God's revelatory actions or not?
I do.
now, so far that we read in Romans, they are starting. It's it's not as simple as it is, Darth. Nobody just starts with God and not God. Some actually start with a de facto God, as what has been revealed to us throughout Romans 17 onwards, as far as what we read. But I don't think you want to acknowledge that, so that you will have reasons to still argue for your bankrupt presup method. Anyway, let's continue.
Because
Well,
I
then-
believe the
then-
revelatory actions. I believe the revelatory actions
Okay.
actually took
Must
place.
we start with God's revelatory actions in order to have any intelligible facts?
Not. I don't see the connection of that argument.
So are you saying that you don't start with God's revelatory actions in order to establish facts?
Well, I do, but I do also because I believe the revelatory actions. Again, you keep dismissing this part of the problem, Darth.
So
That
are
the-
you
the
catering
atheists-
to the unbeliever's starting point when you reason with them?
Yeah, absolutely, I would say I am. Yes,
So
I would be.
So you're capitulating that there are
I
brute
would be.
facts.
I would be engaging what I would consider.
So what
acts
you're
in
doing is you are
standard of
conceding to
apologetics.
them that there are some brute facts.
I am conceding that based upon our philosophical position in this world,
When
that
you try to
absolute
reason to them,
knowledge, that absolute knowledge.
I'm not
state-
hearing a clear
Can
answer.
you let
here.
him
All I'm
finish?
hearing
I'm
is
trying to
rhetoric.
talk, Darth. I'm trying to actually explain
Are you
my
conceding
position.
to
Let
them
him
any
fucking
brute facts?
finish, dude.
See, this is what Darth does. He has a script. He wants you to answer the questions in his
See,
script.
you're dodging.
If you
Yeah.
try to,
Darth, he's not dodging. The only reason why you're talking right now is because he knows that if he gives you a proposition and that's something you can't even elucidate in defense of your methodology, the only thing left for you to do is to demand acceptance of your assertions. See, all you do is shotgun people with assertions. Gentleman with a mustache, what are you talking about? I haven't. Gentleman with a mustache, what are you talking about? I don't even see. Somebody came in with with my face in it. I don't even. Anyway, they don't like me, so they're gonna strike me. But anyway, let's just continue.
explain or you try to go outside his script, he has emotional conniptions like what you're seeing right now.
I'm not having
Because
an
his
emotional conniption right
narcissism
now.
will not permit him to actually
Okay,
engage
now
in any
here
type of
comes. I
actual
want the
adult
viewing audience to
conversation.
know now.
He's like,
come the
now
personal
let me
attack.
talk over him so he doesn't say some stuff. Let me talk over him. Let him. If you're interested in the truth,
Darth, this is why the only
Uh, um, Guru, no, that isn't Tom Rabbit. That's not him. That's not him with the mustache. That's actually Vince. He goes by the name of music analyst in YouTube. And according to Smokey, it's been a while since he chimed in, I guess. But I think I don't know where he's at right now. But the guy's good. The guy's all good, right? I think he's a Christian. Anyway, where were we?
Only place you can get any semblance of actual functional conversational respect is inside that dank,
See,
disgusting
now
sewer
more
pipe of a
personal
Discord
attacks rather
server.
than answering the question.
Well, it's not personal, Darth. It's simply an observation of
When
the
you
nature of things.
appeal,
You may
I'm asking you a
dislike it, but
question.
truth is
Do
generally
you need me to repeat
unsavory.
the question? You're dodging.
Darth, your questions, like I said in the response to you, sir, is that your questions are almost intentionally nonsensical. I
Okay,
understand
do you need
how
me to
your
repeat the
perspective,
question?
Darth. You
Are
don't
you going
want
to
the
answer my
answer to the
question or
question.
not?
Darth, you
Are
don't
you
want
going to
the
answer
answer.
my question or not?
You don't want the answer because the answer doesn't
So you're
fit
not
your
going to answer
script.
the question. So the viewing audience knows that you're scared to
Yes,
answer
the
my
viewing
question.
audience knows I'm scared, Darth. That's exactly what they're going to get
Well, then
from this.
why are you
Congratulations.
obfuscating?
Good for you. Do you feel good about
Okay,
yourself?
so when you approach an
You've acted
unbeliever
like a real adult,
apologetically,
Darth. That's good. The audience
when
saw it.
you
The
approach
audience is
an
happy.
unbeliever, when you try to conclude God, do you leave God out of the first or second premise when you conclude, therefore,
No,
God?
I don't leave the gospel out of my apologetics like you do, Darth.
No, that's not an answer to my question.
Sure it is.
When you attempt to reason syllogistically with an unbeliever, is God included in either the first or second premise when you conclude, therefore, God?
Not every single one of them. Hold on.
God is real. Just look around you. How do you think all this shit got here?
Okay,
Seriously.
I didn't hear an answer. We have interference here.
You see, even somebody who isn't as articulate as our beloved theologians can actually recognize the disgusting nonsense that Dart presents. He actually demands that you accept his circular reasoning. That just shows you how much of a kid Darth is. But are you sure, Darth? Are you sure you want to further continue to embarrass yourself this way? Do you want to claim that we're stupid except you? Dunning, Kruger.
Somebody's
That's
running
true.
You
interference
tell
here.
him, Melis,
Now, do
husband.
you start with God in either the first or second premise when you
I don't-
conclude, therefore, God with an unbeliever?
No, Darth. I don't start with God, and I don't know how that's a reasonable.
Okay, then it's incoherent. Then you cannot conclude with God, my friend, because then you would be establishing a premise that exists without reference to the necessity of God, and that would be called a brute fact. In a God world, can there be brute facts?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what philosophical direction you're trying to take with that, but
Okay.
you ran past a lot.
Do you
of
know what a
things that
brute
don't
fact
agree with.
is? Do you know what a brute fact is?
It's a statement of undeniable truth.
No, you're not understanding. A brute fact is a fact that exists without any ultimate identifiable basis to it.
Yes, it's
So then,
undeniable.
okay, so
It's like
no,
law
no,
of
no,
identity.
listen to me. Listen to me.
Darth,
Do you start with any fact? Okay, let me try to explain it to you, all right?
Darth, we can
simplify this
operate
and I'll
from
keep
the
it
law
short.
of identity. This is where you
Okay,
don't get
Smokey,
it. The
Smokey,
atheist
please
can
don't
operate.
overtalk me. No, I'm gonna ask you.
You're
I'm
just not
trying
letting
to
me clarify
clarify
anything.
something
You just
to
want
you because you're over
Who
talking.
is you
All
to
right,
say about
There goes that famous line.
Can
Don't
you present
overtalk me,
any
Smokey.
fact? When you present a fact, it will either be a created fact or it'll be a brute fact. An uncreated fact, by definition, will be a brute fact. So when you approach an unbeliever, do you invoke created facts or not created facts?
I don't.
I say look
Darth,
around you.
My world is not that particularly stark and black and white in terms of that.
So when you bring
epistemological
premises
approach.
to the unbeliever,
I don't.
are
Well,
they
Darth, I
created
don't
facts
always
or
bring
not created
premises
facts?
to the unbeliever. Again, you're talking about
Well,
something
then,
that I don't
then
always.
how can you
engage in.
conclude
I'm not
God
a
if you're not bringing any premises?
Because Darth, And again, you won't let me explain, so I don't know why you're even asking the question. I try to explain to you, and then you stop me and say I'm wrong, and then go on your diatribe again. What do you want me to answer or not?
I'm waiting. You're just obfuscating.
Well, then let me answer and shut the hell up.
No,
Okay.
I'm listening.
If you
won't
want to
answer.
know, I deduce or induce inductively or deductively to the existence of God, then I can operate back from there. I don't presume for the unbeliever to accept my ontological starting point without giving them at least some justification for it. You see, the
So
thing
are
is,
you presenting
you
to
ignore.
them?
Can I
I'm
finish?
still waiting for an
Can I
answer to the
finish?
question.
Can I?
Hi, Candace. Glad of you. Hey, Candace. Glad of you to join us. Well, rather glad of you to join me.
Hey, Boki. So this is the first time that I think this is the first time I saw you doing live, but I didn't know that you actually would like I only saw the link that you put out today, so that's why I joined. I'm really in joining this conversation. Yeah.
Okay, well, good thing, Candace, because it's just going to get better from here. So, what I want you to do is just get a nice, good old munch of good old Darth Karen over here. Just get a good whiff of this one.
Are you
freaking
presenting?
finished, Darth. Holy crap, dude.
Are
You
you
are such a
presenting to
child.
them creative
You are
facts
such a
or
child,
And he's
dude.
uncreative
50
facts?
years something old.
Unbelievable.
You're 50 years old,
You
dude.
can't even let me finish my freaking response.
Well,
Darth. You are
because
such
you're
a
not
shame.
addressing my question.
No,
I
dude,
want to
you
know,
are
do you
ashamed
present
to
the unbeliever,
apologetics
do
and
you
even
present to
human
them
decency.
created facts or brute facts?
I present to them a presuppositional starting point between the two of us.
That's not the question I asked.
Okay, I don't know, both. Darth, how about both, depending on the
Well,
circumstance?
that would by definition be incoherent. Smokey.
Okay, by your definition, which you have not yet
No,
substantiated.
Wait.
Okay.
Smokey, hold on. You liar, evolution false, Darth, or whatever the fuck your name is. Didn't you say that you were Christian?
I am a Christian, yes.
Is he a Christian? Is that true,
That's up
Smokey?
that's up to debate.
Yeah, because
Now, Smokey,
I don't feel anything
you
Christian about
reason-
this guy.
When you reason
Anything.
to God,
He
as
doesn't
the
even need the
conclusion,
gospel. He doesn't even preach the gospel.
Listen,
he never talks about
He
it.
sounds like a
every
miserable
day on
fuck.
Discord. Now,
Ignores it.
Smokey,
He's
I'd
a
like
sick,
it. See, this is
narcissistic,
what you
mental
do. You just
degenerate
become argumentative.
moron
I want to
sits in
know.
his house and yells
I
at
would
atheists
like to
all
know.
day
See, you're
and
running
doesn't
the
know when to
clock
step
out.
away from the.
See, I'd like the listening audience to know this is what Smokey does. He asks a legitimate question, and he runs the clock out. Now, when you
Do you hear that? Do you hear that slandering, reviling language that he brings when he has a hissy fit?
Yeah,
He
I
doesn't
think that
like to be talked over, but at the same time, he's complaining about being talked. He doesn't like to be talked over. He complains about it, but at the same time, he talks over people. That sucks. Oh, by the way, Erica, no, that was actually music analyst laughing. Oh, Darth.
yeah, I think this was one of the first videos I saw on Smokey's channel, which was
My sentiments exactly. It's the same thing. This is the first thing I watched in Smokey's channel video. Yeah. By the way, God bless you, Candace. Thanks for coming in here. I did show you some company here too.
Wait, and so Boki, let me get this right. Darth is for presup, while Smokey is not. Am I correct?
Smokey is not a presup, but in this video, he tried to utilize presup in order to deduce or induce towards the Christian God, because he states that he has to like they won't be able to grant a premise for the Christian God until Smokey is able to give a justification for it. He has to give him reason as to why should I grant the premise of the Christian God. He's trying to answer that. But Darth doesn't recognize it. Darth is just simply demanding acceptance of the premise. That is why he with that kind of language where he says, do you start with God in the first, second, third, or fourth premises? Like, it took me a while to understand it, but you're gonna find out that it's just not how that works, Candace. You don't just hammer people into accepting a God premise or a God claim without actually justifying it first. Because the atheist or any other person who holds a different epistemology than we do won't see it that way. They won't look at it that way. So we have to justify it first. To put it simply, we have they won't grant our perspective until we justify it or give good reasons for it as to why they should grant it.
Okay, I might need to do more research on this because as you're explaining, I was looking in Wikipedia about presuppositionalism apologetics, and it
Right.
basically said that yeah, it that believes so presup believe that Christian faith is the only basis for rational thought. It presupposes that the Bible is divine revelation and attempts to expose flaws in other worldviews, which I believe
Mhm.
Smokey would align. But I guess I'll have to definitely dig deeper. But yeah.
And go, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, beautiful. All right. Thanks, Candace. Just remember this, Candace. You can do that, but don't hammer it down. You have to make it more sophisticated. That's all I can tell you. But yeah, I'm glad that you're showing interest in this subject. So, shall we continue with the video?
Yeah, and actually, before you do, I just want to say, like, before I really um like I feel I wasn't a true Christian because I I was pretty much feeling like it was about my empirical experiences. It was about my spiritual experiences with God, while I actually wasn't familiarizing my myself with
Hmm.
apologetics stuff. And so honestly, like, yeah, I definitely would have to um do do more research on this. And
Hmm.
yeah, go on.
I mean, you don't have to get into apologetics to be a Christian. There's many more. Some are called to be faithful, serving Christians, and some are called to be defenders or polemicists of the faith. So, don't worry about it. But I'm really glad that you're actually showing some interest in the apologetics. So yeah, I can give you that one. So yeah, let's continue with the video.
Okay, thanks, Boki.
You present premises
There's no
followed by the
clock.
conclusion, therefore God. Are these premises created facts or not created facts?
It
Shit.
depends on the worldview. It depends on the
No,
worldview.
worse
but you're
than
not
Biden.
From our
understanding. A
perspective,
fact will
for
either
our
be a
objective. Okay,
created
I'll answer you,
fact
Darth.
or an
Objectively,
uncreated
hold on,
fact.
Darth. Objectively, as in factually, outside of our reality or perspective, they're brute facts. I'll give it to you. They're brute. Okay, but the naturalist will not view it that way. So you
Okay,
just
do you understand what I mean by
demanding
brute
them.
fact?
Yes,
I need you to
Darth.
understand. I gave a definition of what a brute fact is earlier. I just want to make sure that we're on the same
Yeah,
page.
that you're an asshole.
Brute
That's a brute
fact
fact.
is a brute fact. A brute fact, Smokey, in the manner in which I'm using it, a brute fact is something that exists without ultimate reference.
God is your only brute
Okay.
fact, Darth.
Okay. Now,
Is
so
God
good.
your
So
only
when you
brute
present
fact?
when you
Is
present
God your
premises
only
or
brute
facts,
fact? Can you answer one of my questions?
God by definition would not be no. God by definition would not be a brute fact. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when you
Why not?
reason with
Because that
unbelievers
sounds
in
like what
your
you just
Christian
defined.
apologetic, okay, the premises that you lay out, they will either by definition be created facts that God must exist in order to be for there to be facts, or you're going to present brute facts that have no identifiable
That's
reason why
true,
they exist.
Guru.
Yeah, and see,
So
there's your
those
problem.
facts and premises
There's the
that you
problem.
present
There it
first,
is.
are they
There it
are they
is.
brute facts or not?
I'm not
brute
going to
facts?
answer that question because I disagree with everything you just said, Darth. Like, this
Okay.
is the problem. Like you don't even let me even stop you with some of this crap you're spewing
Well,
out there, and then
well,
you ask
facts
me to
would have to
respond to it.
be facts would
Okay.
either have to be brute or not brute
Darth,
facts. Monkey.
Darth, you don't understand how the naturalist starts their ontology. How does the
Okay,
naturalist?
I'm asking.
No,
I'm
I've answered
asking
your
you.
questions. I've
No,
answered
you
your
didn't
questions.
answer it. I did not hear an answer to my question.
Because
When
your
you
question
lay
is
out-
unanswerable, Darth.
When you lay out premises,
It's
are
why
these
is the
facts
sky
that you
purple?
lay out,
What do you mean you
when-
can't answer me?
well,
It's such a simple question. Why is
Smokey,
the sky purple?
when you lay out facts and premises, are they presented as brute facts to the unbeliever or not?
No, I would say they're not. I would go ahead
So
and
then, by definition, they would be created facts.
sure. I guess let's go ahead and go with that. I'll go ahead
Okay,
and follow
so
you on your
so
next
then,
step.
in order to present created facts, which are the premises, then you would have to start that God exists.
I don't follow.
Well, then a created fact is a fact which is instituted and secured by God's existence. Otherwise,
That's just how you're
fact.
defining it, Darth.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. You see, Darth, by his methodology, he defines brute facts not the way it's supposed to be defined. What he's doing is that he's doctoring a God claim into it. Now, I don't have a problem in establishing that God is the source of all brute facts because I believe in the power of our Lord God, our Savior Jesus Christ. But at the same time, it would be nice that if there would that to have some fair grounds. We should stick to what the word essentially means. That definition of what it essentially means, not our interpolations towards that. The guy is a freaking wacko. He's defining words in a sense that would benefit him. Now I wonder what he'd label me if I tried the same game that he's playing right now, other than the fact that he's just going to call me a troll. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not actually done extrapolating or dissecting through this methodology that Darth subscribes. We have plenty of English expositories and exegeticals to see this. Now, for the exegeticals, because the New Testament is written in Greek, I'm going to ask Dr. Kenny for help. I'm going to have him collab with me. I'm going to have him exit his ASMR insults for a bit and help this spurging little hobbyist theist in the internet decipher the Greek in order for me to actually get the proper context. But anyway, going back.
So when you
This
present
isn't-
premises or facts to an unbeliever in order to conclude with God, are these facts brute facts or not brute facts?
You keep asking the same question now.
Because I haven't gotten a straight answer.
Yes, you have, Darth. I told you. I approached them on their epistemological worldview, not mine.
Okay, so you are granting
this is
to
the
them
difference between
that there
us.
are facts.
This is the difference
you are
between
granting to them. So let me get this clear.
I will grant
you
them.
are granting. Can I finish, please, without you ever talking to me?
No, because you're gonna shove in my mouth
clarification.
what I grant them. Is what you're.
So are you granting them that there are one or more facts that exist without reference to the necessity of God?
3 more minutes, man.
Oh yeah, we're gonna send the new
Are you
one.
doing that?
Yes, I would say yes. I for the sake of
Okay,
their.
well, that's unbiblical.
For the
of you
sake
to
of
do
their
that.
worldview, yes, because I'm trying to be.
So then you are granting them something that is not true?
No. Darth, you know what you do? You take Romans 1, you shape it into a club, and then you go and beat the crap out of people.
You are acknowledging.
Boom. There you go. The whole point of my commentary reading. This isn't something you use to beat the atheist in the head with it. This is more of a salvific problem. And I have shown you, ladies and gentlemen, for those who were here earlier, I have shown you some commentary from the church fathers, and it's just going to get better. It's just going to get better because I'm actually going to be reading also from the English expositions and the exegeticals, in which I will repeat again, I'll need Dr. Kenny's help for it. But here's the thing, right? Demanding acceptance. It takes that verse and turns it into a hammer, right? It's like he's suggesting that everybody universally has an innate sense or an innate knowledge of God, which we're born with it, which is not the case. The mental and spiritual faculties that God gave us, He gave that to us, is that if we seek Him, we'll be able to infer to Him properly, and not as the de facto God, which the Romans, although while they recognized the Christian God, they didn't retain God as God, but they made a de facto God for themselves, a de facto version of the Christian God, in which they actually could play the same game that Darth is playing right now. All right? This is the part where I actually tell you that if the nature of things contradict what God says, what God is, or what has been established, then that's a de facto God. Because the God we worship is the source of all this. He is not contained in the spectrum of our mental faculties. We can't grasp Him fully. We can't crawl in His head and see what's going on in His little brain of His. No, we're not. Can't do that. But the de facto God of what the Romans made, especially those when it comes to morality, were kind of like sounds like a bunch of free gracious. God is love, man. He just loves. He doesn't punish. He doesn't freaking say mean things to people. No, that's a de facto God. The God I know is actually keen on calling out false teachers, false converts, and freaking sissified spiritual faggots. That is the God we worship. He doesn't take crap from people, and you know it.
This is
That
what
to
you
them
do.
that there are some facts that exist without reference to the
In their
necessity of God. Is
In
that
their
what you're doing?
worldview, which I'm generally arguing from to convince them, yes, I acknowledge that.
So
I
you're
acknowledge-
reasoning from
I
their
acknowledge
falsehoods?
that they have the ability to justify from a beginning.
So you are acknowledging
Can I
falsehoods?
finish? Can I finish, please?
Well, I want you to respond to what I'm saying.
I'm responding, Darth. Shut the hell up.
Well, you got to calm down, Smokey.
Well, why don't you calm down and shut the hell
I'm
up? And let me
perfect.
actually answer
I'm
your
Don't
question.
worry,
calm right now.
Darth
You're the one who's
Karen.
not calm.
What's your name now? Darth
You
Karen.
should hear yourself.
I
It's
mean,
perfectly calm because he made you angry, man.
so you're admitting. So you're
Okay.
admitting you're starting with falsehoods in order
I'm
to show
starting
God.
with the presuppositional acceptance from their ontology, from their philosophical ontology, that their beginning starting point of their ontology starts with a circular reasoning. This is the Munchausen
No.
trilemma.
They're starting with that these facts are
Darth,
brute facts.
Do I get to finish my freaking response?
So I'm just not clear. Are you starting with brute facts?
Darth, how is he ever supposed to answer you when you can't shut the
Because
fuck
if you
up?
start with
Now
brute
look,
facts, there aren't
let
any
me
brute
cut.
facts in the Christian world. So you're denying God.
Do you see why this is a waste of time with him? You see why I didn't even bother?
No, you're
bothering
starting with
this?
falsehoods of the unbeliever's world and then concluding, therefore, God.
Fine, Darth.
start
Does
with
that make you
falsehoods
feel
and then
happy?
conclude,
Fine. Does
therefore,
that make you
God?
feel happy, Darth? Oh, yay, you won from your epistemological,
Not whether I
ontological,
won. It's
Antillean,
just that
mentally
you're
bankrupt
demonstrating that
nonsense. Good for you,
You're
Darth.
denying God in the introduction of brute facts in order to
No.
conclude God.
No, I'm deducing to God, and I'm helping them follow through that before I
Can
start
you
arguing
deduce
from
to?
God.
Can you conclude with
You-
God starting with
You
false
begin
facts?
arguing with God at the very beginning. You demand they accept the presupposition before you even begin
and so
to argue.
you are
with
denying
presupposition.
God in order to argue to God.
Van Til was a mentally bankrupt, degenerate moron, and you're just a little deranged.
This is where
Where
it
did you
gets
get-
triggered.
Okay, let's unpack that. Where did you get the idea that Cornelius Van Til was a mentally degenerate moron. Where'd you get that from?
I get it from the impression that he spawned people.
Have
along
you
like
read
Hitler,
any of his books?
and
You don't even.
well, I read through as much as I could stomach of what
Can
you
you
sent
tell
me, sir.
me? Can
And
you
you know,
tell
let me
me
tell you
which of
something.
Van Til's
Let me
books
tell you
have you
something.
read?
There is
Which of
nothing
Van
about
Til's
Van
books
Til.
have you
Dude,
read?
There is-
why
let
are
me
you
tell you
over
something.
talking him so much?
There's nothing about that I've seen in Van Til or you, Darth, that has anything to show about any.
Have you read?
Wait. We gotta reset.
Hey, Smokey, have you read any of Van Til's book? Dude, that's the heat of the matter right now. Okay, Okay, guys. I'm gonna share with you a cautionary tale. So if Darth actually wants to quiz you in Van Til's books, here's what I can give you. Now we all know that Gnosticism is pretty much that sort of a heresy that Saint Irenaeus looked into. It's kind of like when you have that when you become a theist, you have this sort of special access to knowledge, some Cartesian certainty that you can't possibly be wrong. You can't possibly need correction. You don't possibly need further study because you like to think that after subscribing to theism, you actually have this proper grasp on how God holds concepts to. Like you actually know things the way he knows things, which is a heresy. Because if I could know things the way God knows things, that just makes me kind of like him. Okay? And here's the fun part, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the fun part. In order for Van Til to actually support his apologetic methodology, he had to run to Gnosticism. He had to run to that. In which in an article he says that one person could attest that he said you can't have any proper logic, philosophical leaning, or any conclusiveness or any absolute or any form absolutely if you don't believe in God. And if that's the case, Darth, if that's the case, if you want to make leverage from that and with your Pope, then I'll tell you this. There are a bunch of genius mathematician prodigies in India who even at their 4th or 5th year of existence has already been solving equations, that of which a Pythagoras theorem, complex calculus problems, very intricate forms of algebra. And I'll tell you this, Darth, do they have justification for their equations, for their answers, even if they don't believe in a God? Because according to your methodology, and according to the Gnosticism that you actually subscribe to, they don't. So it's kind of like you're claiming that you're smarter than them. I mean, even them, who are just young, and you, supposedly the elder, have seen it all. Like, if I put them between you and themselves, I would pretty much point at them that they know a lot more than you. Because all you do is sit down and yell at atheists all the time. And never have you brought any of them with your methodology to Christ. Because you degrade them, you denigrate their intelligence. That's what they do. That's what they can't accept. And you know that some of them are highly egoistic when it comes to intelligence. Some of them. I'm not saying all. But you should. But of all people who's claimed to have done it for 20 years or so, you of all people should know that. You don't bring them to Christ. You drove them away.
We gotta restart the Zoom. I'm gonna send the link again. The timer is on 1 minute.
Yeah, you just made an accusation about that Van Til that is completely
Did you
false.
hear
And
what
that's
I
how
said, you
scurrilous
asshole?
Yeah, I know you are going to
Yeah.
defend your Pope. I know, Darth.
Evolution, you asshole. Did you hear what I said?
You just made an outright lie to cover yourself.
This
You
guy
made an
doesn't
outright
listen.
slanderous,
No.
defamatory
I'm gonna
remark
send a
about
new
Cornelius
link.
Mentally
Van
ill.
Til, Smokey.
Dude,
You just revealed your
do
true
you
colors,
hear what
Smokey.
the fuck I'm saying? I'm gonna send a new
Oh boy, Darth, you
link.
better publicize it.
I gotta send a new link. This guy is like a wall.
Darth Dawkins,
Dude
the
is like a
reviler.
fucking wall. Talking to a wall.
Darth Karen, you're right, music
Trying to
analyst.
make Smokey look bad. The only thing he's doing is making himself look like an asshole. I mean, he's not making it. It's not hard for him. If you are an asshole, you don't. It doesn't take that much to
I agree.
display it.
I agree.
Dude,
I agree, Vince. I
like
agree.
you're not promoting atheism. Very good. You know that?
I agree.
You're not making atheist people look any good.
Yeah, the guy
You know what
has
I'm
to. You're right. The guy has to revile his opposition in order to get the upper hand. What a
Christian,
coward!
my ass. This guy says he's a Christian. Dude says he's a Christian. All right. Go. Let's go.
Okay, I
Talk.
would like to know from you what is the factual basis for you to call Cornelius Van Til, who is an earned PhD in philosophy, was a renowned theologian? On what grounds do you say that Cornelius Van Til was a?
I disagree. I disagree with Reformed theology and particularly his brand
Okay, I disagree
of
with
demanded
Reformed
acceptance.
Theology. I disagree with Reformed theology.
I
too,
don't
but it
think.
doesn't
Well, you know
follow
what,
from
Darth?
that-
I'm going to tell you
It
something.
doesn't follow from that.
Let me tell you
Cornelius Van
something.
Til was a degenerate
Hold on.
moron.
Hold on. I don't think.
claim.
I don't think that this Van Tilian nonsense of approach to apologetics, which you call nuclear apologetics, and rightfully so, because it's just as radioactive.
I'm not hearing you
toxic
respond
as a
to me
nuclear
at all.
bomb.
You're talking
Yeah, I'm
past
trying
me.
to, but you won't ever let
No,
me.
you're talking past me. You're not talking to me.
Darth, I'm trying to give you.
Okay.
There's that other
opinion about
famous
the Pope,
line.
and I think you're just so.
No,
triggered
no, I
that you
don't
won't allow me
consider
to
him
actually
my
deal with
Pope at all.
Well,
okay?
why do you
Now,
talk about
you
Van Til a
stated-
lot more
can
than
we
just?
can we talk to each other?
Why
instead
do you
of
talk?
talking past me?
Well, you know, Darth, I have
Now
issues
you
with
said
you on
Van
an
Til was a
epistemological
degenerate
level.
moron. Where'd you get that from?
Do I have to get it from somewhere, or am I allowed to come to my own?
You made a defamatory, slanderous remark about Cornelius Van Til.
Am I
that he
allowed
was
to
a
have that
degenerate
opinion?
moron.
Am I allowed
Okay,
to have that?
I would
opinion?
like you to explain to me what the basis of
This
that
is
slanderous
America,
remark is.
dude. We have our own opinions.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because when I tried to explain,
Yeah.
did he not cut me off like 2 times, like from
I'm
explaining
listening.
and then tell me to explain again?
Are you
Okay, I'm
listening?
listening.
All right.
Okay, well, he adopted a Reformed theology, which I think presented and created this outrageously disgusting, toxic methodology that you have adopted to the point where you even admit, and I heard it in that teaching about an atheism, how to talk to an atheism stream, of you admitting that you basically weren't even there to talk about the gospel or Jesus Christ. You're just to pound them over the head.
You're
with
not
the
addressing my
necessity of-
question.
Yeah, you did.
You are not addressing the question.
Wait,
I'm just not
wait,
addressing it the way he wants.
Wait,
which is
Melly husband, what did you say?
No, when you say somebody is a
Dude.
degenerate, are you talking about?
I
Wait,
think
wait,
someone who had Reformed theology and then
This is the-
created this crap, yeah, is a degenerate. Yeah, that's what I believe, Darth.
Melly's
Darth
husband.
Vader.
This take Romans 1 and turn it into a club and go beat atheists up with it like you do. Yeah, nuclear strength.
He's
apologetics.
muted.
Yeah, I
That's
muted him. I muted him. Asshole doesn't even care for anything. I'm like,
He won't. Yeah, see, that's how he operates in Discord. That's why he needs to have these debates in Discord. That's why he's about having me in his Discord so that he can mute me and say, no, you're not answering my question. Even while I'm answering the question, he's like, no, I want you
No,
to.
what I want to know, I asked you a question. and I
Asshole
didn't
got
get a clear
unmuted.
answer to
Oh
that.
my god.
When you argue for the existence of God, do you start with brute facts
Darth.
or not?
Oh my
Do you start with brute
All right.
facts or not?
I'll tell you what. Let's unpack brute facts. Let's just go ahead and unpack the term and how.
Brute fact is something that exists.
Well, don't
without
you define
reference
it.
to the
Don't you
necessity
define
of
it.
God.
Let me define it. Let me define it.
No.
Let me define how I want to use it, and then.
No,
we'll
I'm not asking you how you use it. I defined the manner in which I'm using the word brute fact.
But I
a
disagree
brute fact
with
is something.
I disagree with that.
Listen,
I think that's
can you talk with me like a civil adult?
Oh, what an
I've never had an
Darth,
encounter with you where you're
I
civil.
think
What
your
an asshole.
description. I don't agree with your description
Now,
of how
a brute fact is something that exists
Okay.
without an ultimate reference point. Okay, that's a brute fact. A brute fact is something that exists without an ultimate
again.
reference.
Okay,
What do you mean, brute fact?
Can you repeat, man?
Give me an example. Give me an
Okay.
example. Give me an example. A real world example. Give me a real
Well,
world example.
in a God world, brute facts can and do not exist. But what I'm asking you is, when you attempt to argue for the existence of
Wait.
God, do you start with brute facts or not?
Brute facts.
Not.
Not.
Okay.
No.
That's a legitimate question.
So hold on. So in
Now,
a
you
in a
guys can try
God
to white
universe,
knight
hold
for
on.
him, but
Let me
it's
just
not helping
clarify.
him.
Let me clarify. So you're saying in a God universe, brute facts, as in facts that are not substantiated individually, just by themselves, don't exist.
No, the issue is not that they're not substantiated. There is no ultimate reason why they exist. Any fact that exists will either, via the law of excluded middle, a fact will either be a created fact or not a created fact. If something is not a created fact, then by definition, it will be a brute fact. It means somebody will invoke a fact without the necessity of referencing.
Give me
the
a fucking
necessity of
example.
God,
What is a
okay?
brute fact to you? Give me an example before you
Okay,
continue
a
on.
brute fact would be a fact that exists without the necessity of referencing the
Yeah, give me
necessity
an
of God.
example.
We
Give me an
need-
example.
Okay.
Like if you
Just
hit
there's
your head.
defining an
Since
abstract.
I'm a
Darth.
Christian,
Give me an example.
Okay, hold on. All right.
There are
Hold on.
in the Christian worldview, there are no brute facts.
Okay. So give me one from the naturalist worldview then.
Okay. The naturalist worldview is fiction. It doesn't
But
exist.
give me a brute fact from their fiction.
They could say anything. They could say there's a rock on the side of the road. But now the point is simply this: when you try to reason with unbelievers, okay, you are appealing to their brute facts and then concluding, therefore God. It will be brute facts, therefore God. Is that your position?
So I guess let me just make sure I'm
was
clear
that?
here. So like would someone who's relying upon
God, is that you?
What was it?
so someone who's relying upon their logic as their
That's
start.
a deep voice, man.
I'm not hearing an answer to my
Well,
question.
I'm
Every
trying
time
to-
I ask you a question,
I'm trying to
entirely
clarify.
evasive, and I understand why you're
I'm
evasive.
trying, Darth. I'm trying to actually clarify.
No,
Okay,
you're not trying.
Who's talking?
Now,
Who
Who
keeps
is that?
doing that?
Would you like me to repeat the
That's
question that you're
Darth's.
evading?
Who's kick Darth's butt, buddy? Because I can't.
That's butt buddy.
Is that
Okay,
Darth?
I want to
Pick him.
know: are you starting with brute facts, followed by brute facts, and concluding therefore God?
Is the acceptance of logic a brute fact?
Okay, a fact will either be invoked as a created fact or not a created fact.
Why
So
can't
are
you
you
answer my
starting
question?
with not created facts followed by not created
Why
facts?
can't you
and then
answer my
concluding,
question?
Therefore God. I did
the,
answer your question.
Is the acceptance of the law? Well, I didn't hear an answer. I said, is the acceptance of the law of logic a brute fact?
If it is not referenced to God as creator, then it will
Right.
be invoked as a brute fact.
Right. And then the atheist.
Is
That's
that what you're
exactly
doing?
they do. Well, that's what the atheist.
Is that what you're doing?
That's not what I. Well, no. If I'm arguing from inside their worldview, I might do that.
No,
But
no,
I'm not.
I want a simple question. When you argue for God as the conclusion, in the first, second, or plus premises, are any of the premises
We're going back to
brute
that
facts?
again.
Probably.
You don't. Well, it's really simple.
Well,
Either
it's
the
not
premises
always
are
the
brute
same
facts.
argument, Darth. You never let me
Listen to me
clarify, so I
carefully.
can't tell
Listen to
you.
me carefully. Either the premises are brute facts or they're not brute facts.
I'm
If they are
aware of
not
that,
make a
brute
Darth,
good
but I
facts,
don't
teacher,
always use this
then
thing with
and I
every
mean
person.
that
Why won't he listen?
then the
I doesn't know.
question, listen, I understand
Why do I have to? You know
how
what,
you're
Darth? I'm not
afraid
like
of
you.
the question.
But Darth,
Every
I'm not like
time
you.
use
I
over
don't
you,
argue. Can you mute him for a second? please,
Yes,
for the love of
yes,
God,
yes.
please.
yeah, if you mute
Darth,
me,
I
I'll
can't.
just
Okay,
Oh.
you'll just go. You should go, Darth, because I
Silence.
can't get a word in. I hope you do go. I hope you leave right now. I hope that is what happens, because that's ridiculous.
Oh, he left. Oh
Good.
no.
Good, he left. That's ridiculous. He won't even let me clarify even a premise about a brute fact, about a naturalist from their worldview will accept laws of logic as a brute
Okay,
fact.
I
And
think
all
we've
he
seen
does
enough.
is come
I
in and
think we've seen
demands,
enough
no,
of that.
no,
I think we've seen enough of that. So, Candace, what do you think of all that? Candace? Hi, Candy? Hi, Candace? Candace? I picked up a flower for you. Candace. Yeah, rinse Darth indeed. Candace. I think she's sleeping. I think she just stepped away or something. Well, I'm gonna admit right now that that segment inspired me to do this, to show that even Darth and his cronies can't just take the tenets of Romans 1 and hammer it on atheists' head. They can't do that. They shouldn't do that. Now, they're actually pretty big in calling out behaviors. But here's the catch, right? That was an improper use of the verse's utility. That was supposed to be meant to lead people to Christ, not turn them away and tell them that they don't have any reasoning or their mental faculties mean nothing. You can't, you're essentially profaning the Holy Gospel by making a leverage of his name and using that to tell people that they're stupid. That's a scummy thing to do. Okay, final words, because it's literally 12 o'clock right now. I need to get some sleep. The effects of the coffee have worn out, so I think Candace stepped away. I think she's sleeping. So the replay will be on for you to know, Candace, that thank you for chiming in, and the Lord keep you and watch over you. Okay, so I actually have to remove her. I'm sorry. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Do hit that like button if you like the content. We'll be continuing this at another time. I still want to be able to read the rest of the commentary for Proverbs 1 verse 10, where we focus on my son, if sinners entice thee, consent them not verse. It's a very simple verse with an exceptional, nuanced application. All right. Have a blessed day, everyone. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Guru. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Christian Carpenter, for sticking around. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate the sentiments. I will get some sleep. I'm going to be healthy. Going to regenerate my physical, mental faculties. You too, Guru. You've been a great fan for me. And hang on. Smokey, yeah, thanks for chiming in. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for uh, sparking my interest, kindling my interest further for exploring apologetics and encouraging me to be at least philosophically not inept, in order that I can contend for the faith. It's good. You're a blessing to me. You're a blessing to me. So I guess that's it, everybody. So As always, don't take your salvation for granted. It's always best to tow the truck and not leave it in the dust. And yeah, this is Boki Ken, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.